And it says we are live.
We are live indeed. Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Absolutely.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. So this is my daughter, Ruth. You may have heard of her. But we're very excited today. We've got a wonderful guest for you. We call her Sunshine. That's why we wore yellow.
Yes.
She's a very interesting lady, very clever lady. She frightens the bejesus out of me. She knows so much. I've sort of done my homework before today, so I ask her all the right questions. Well, some of them anyway. So, Ruthie, are you ready to?
Well, yeah, I can't wait. And kids, as you come on and start to formulate questions, there will be some questions that Dr. Sunshine can answer, but she can't tell you who she works for or who her clients are, obviously, because of non-disclosure and, technical agreements, which, believe it or not, there's a case being heard in the Supreme Court today with the big tech companies, which we may touch on. But she is a futurist, a cybersecurity expert, an AI visionary, and soon to be podcaster. She and two friends, all whose names all begin with S, it's the Triple S Club, are going to be having a new podcast called What Joe Doesn't Know. So we'll let her tell us all about that. That's
Joe meaning Joe Blow.
Average Joe. Yes.
Average
the average Joe,
okay.
Joe Blow, Joe Smith, Joe whatever.
Yeah, okay.
And here, without further ado, and the crowd goes wild for Sunshine. There you are.
Hi, darling.
Hello.
Hi.
It's very nice to see you too. You look beautiful in your sunshiny yellow.
Well,
it's in your honor, of course, Sunshine. You bring sunshine on a cloudy day. Wasn't that a song?
I think that might be a good lyric. We should write that.
No, I think it's been done. Too late, she cried.
Right.
So, things I would like to talk to you about. I mean, you could sort of maybe carve out some time and explain things to us, because the whole world of AI is just, a whole new world to most ordinary Joes like me. And
just read what's on the script.
Okay, yeah. Read what's on the script.
I spent hours writing the script, and then she went,
Well, I haven't got my reading glasses on now.
I
see. Got my shades on.
Well, then let us begin. As they say in England, I'll begin. So obviously, have questions at the ready and so on and so forth. We were talking the other day, Sunshine and I, about cars and technology and stuff, and you came up with a story about.
Oh goodness, when I was maybe about 7 or even younger. I was born in 1929, before God was alive. And people like us didn't have motor cars, or we didn't have telephones in the house. Some people didn't even have a toilet in the house. But my father worked for a doctor. He was a pharmacist, and he worked for a doctor. And one of his perks was the doctor would loan us his car and chauffeur once a year to drive us from Liverpool to North Wales for our annual holiday. And when I think back now, I mean, there are driverless cars. There's even a driverless shuttle in Las Vegas to take people up and down the strip.
That's correct.
I mean, how, from the Model T forward to fast forward to now, in your experience, what are sort of the evolutions of some of that stuff?
So it's interesting how technology has been implemented into vehicles and all different types of vehicles. But before we just had the emission cars, and now we have, the electrical and even more. And it took, there was one technology that started to get implemented years ago that was kind of threatening to people and nerve-wracking. And so it took 30 years to implement that. It was the first device or mechanism that was put into a car that people were losing control, and the car was taking control over, and that was cruise control.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
And how long did that take to get approved, and what was the process?
It took 30 years, and there was all these different regulations and safety compliance rules. And the interesting thing is when we started creating these electric vehicles, autonomous cars, or autonomous, they're not all fully autonomous. And when we started creating them, it was a dream to make them autonomous for those manufacturers. But when they started creating them, it was about maybe a year to 6 months that these new mechanisms similar to cruise control started to be implemented. So instead of 30 years, it was shortened. And now there's 5 every day being implemented.
Good
So
God. And you touched on something about in Vegas, there's some kind of, I mean, you know, there's driverless trains at the airport, which still freaks me out, to be honest. I'm like,
Right?
what happens if there's a cat on the track? Who's going to stop the train? Probably a laser, but
Yeah.
So I sponsor UCLA executive associates, and I help with the LA Minds Matter and mentor the DataFest that they have, which is quite interesting. And USC Annenberg and LMU sponsoring a lot of the STEM up and coming women in technology. And I was on the board at one of the companies I worked for. And there was an elected board, which was quite interesting. And during that time, the head coder and CTO of Vegas showed up and started talking about all of their AI that they've implemented. Wow. And this was back, I want to say in 2018. And so it's already been a while. And they had an autonomous shuttle that had been driving around for, it was about almost a year, about 12 months. And it had gotten in one accident, only one. Okay. And that, you know, good track record. And it was kind of like a minivan with 10 seats. And it was designed to know if an accident was going to occur, it would stop.
Okay.
And so there was I think a delivery truck that was backing up. And the people in the shuttle were, you know, pounding on the window, trying to get attention to the truck, right? And the truck hit the shuttle. No one was injured. But the CTO kind of chuckled and he says, well, we're giving the consumer what they want. And I thought that's interesting. And he says, well, you know, there's one thing that's not in the electrical autonomous shuttle that's in emission cars. And he says, so what's not in there that's in the emission cars is the horn. And I thought, you know, so you're stuck in there. You can't warn anyone, right? So I talked to some of my federal regulating friends and I said, look, you know, we need like a 911 app, or, you know, it's okay to pay $4 to be able to, you know, honk a horn. You know, why no horn? You know, it's this thing about how we've changed from emission cars and we've just kind of threw the whole rule book away.
That's too clever.
It's the Wild West. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You would think that even with all that technology, somebody would have been able to put either a button that you push that makes a blaring sound, or, you know, and even an old klaxon horn. Do you remember in the Model T Ford days? That was one of the first things they thought about. Whoops, you know, right? But isn't that amazing? They've spent all this money and done all this thought, and they forgot the horn. Good grief.
Just, you know, and the safety, even now, you know, we have that one recall with Tesla's recently. You know, I can't say this is what's happening, but my feeling is that we're the test dummies now. You know, let's just, you know, send it out there and see if it works. And if it doesn't, then we have parts to replace. But they don't even replace the whole car. I had a BMW that caught on fire because of the computerized system not working with the emission. And they had, you know, over 400,000 recalls from 2011 to 2014, and they wouldn't replace my car. So my car's all charred. The motor won't run, but they replaced the part.
Lovely.
You know, and then you start blaming people about oil changes, and you know.
You can't, I won't say this too loud because him upstairs might hear me, but you can't trust Z Germans, you know, when it comes to
hey.
He says, hey.
He heard us. Hey.
I know that's your husband. So you had to trust him to Marion.
Oh, that's crazy. But yeah, when you think how it took 30 years to get cruise control approved, and now, we are just the crash test dummies, I guess, until something goes wrong. They have no incentive to fix it, right? If it works,
unless we start stepping up on the platform that I've been working all along on, and that's responsible, ethical AI, where, you know, we need people to right there, Congress people. We need, more support in what we want, out of safety,
right.
our children, our everyone, entire families.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sapphire's saying, I feel like we've always been the guinea pigs to a certain,
Probably.
to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But there's so many new inventions and things coming out all the time. I suppose there's just no way, with the size and the speed of any federal government of either party. I mean, trying to get anything done at a federal level is trying to like flip a U-turn with an aircraft carrier.
30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess we just have to, buckle up and be careful. But those driverless trains at airports still freak me out. I'm just like, oh, get me to the terminal. Can I walk? Is there another way? But often there's not. Like in Vegas, you have to take the train.
Yeah.
In Denver, same thing. There's no way to hoof it, even if you wanted to. But I'd like to get onto the topic of security and ask you. I keep seeing on my Instagram feed, get an RFID radio protected magnetic, wallet. But to me, that sounds a bit like putting foil on your head so the government can't hear your thoughts, right? But
isn't that right?
Yeah, well, that's what we do every night. We put foil on our heads and go sit in the microwave so that they can't hear us.
In the microwave.
But I mean, do you think that's overkill, or do you think that's given what you know with what's going on?
Absolutely not. In fact, I kind of want to touch a little bit on some of the safety protocols that we all should be taking when it comes to, just commonplace. I've had friends who actually have had things happen to them, the scammers, et cetera, who have, phone called them and they deep fake a voice. And this happens to be a 90-year-old woman, my friend's mother. They changed his voice, the son, calling her saying, I need money. And and so, the interesting thing was she volunteers. She's 90 years old, but volunteers for the local police department. And so, she's a little more savvy than deep fake is just crazy. Then some, and Angie, being brilliant, there are some savvy 90-plus-year-olds. That's all I have to say. But they're few and far in between because, technology has changed so fast. So anyway, it happened to be that this scammer called when they were on vacation in Hawaii, and he was there with her. And so she gets the call, and it's his voice saying, this is your son, da, 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 da. And she says, hang on a minute. She hands the phone to him, and he says, hello. And then he says, I think you're trying to pretend to be me. And, we're going to, actually press charges, blah, 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 And so it's just an interesting coincidence. But that's when you, light to the fact that this can happen.
Wow. Yeah, these voice changes are amazing, and the better the quality of the microphone, the closer it gets to the real thing, right?
Yeah.
We've been playing with some stuff, but Andrew has a good one. When if the phone rings, and it's always dinner time, and it's always somebody in a phone room, and you can hear another 1,000 people in the back.
Answer and say, hello, how are you related to the victim?
And they go, what?
And they go, well, this is an active crime scene. This call is being traced, and the detective in charge of the case will get back to you presently.
Yeah, you're now an official suspect. We have your number.
So I'm going to get back to your RFID question, and
yes.
But before I do, I did want to, this whole thing about the phone calls and the scamming, it's quite tricky. And there's a lot of YouTube videos out there. And there's this one gentleman that he actually scams the scammers. It is great entertainment, but he can get right into their camera system. He changes his voice like he's an old lady, and and he actually steals money from them to just prove that that it's scamming. Wow. And so
Wow. So Angie's got another lovely one. If somebody young and male calls, she'll start with the, hey,
what are you wearing?
You sound nice.
You sound nice.
You busy later? Want to meet for a drink? It freaks them out.
What are you wearing?
What are you wearing?
Describe what you're wearing.
Yes.
Oh my God. It just freaks them out.
This RFID thing. So really, in all honesty, there's devices out there now that there's one called the Flipper Zero, Flipper One, that it looks like a little mini. You can find it on YouTube, but it looks like a little mini Nintendo controller. And there's this one video where there's a guy on a motorcycle who's controlling Teslas as he's driving through, making him back up, making him go forward. Yes, just from this little device. That device can also get into your computer, like a PC Anywhere can control your computer. And it's so sophisticated that if they walked by you, they could get your credit card information and unlock things and get into your accounts. So having that RFID protection is actually critical now. It's not the foil on the head. It's actually a safety protocol.
Well, I might actually, because I've got so many credit cards stuffed in a small wallet, I don't think they make them the right size. So I'm just going to line my purse with foil and see if that works.
Right? I was just going to say, wrap each one with foil.
Oh, God.
Or just get one of those huge foil cooler bags from Trader Joe's, and that's your purse.
Right? I grew up in the era when my parents had the foil antennas on the TV,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you had to get up to change the picture.
Right.
Oh, you remember, what was the old lady that was a neighbor of your mother's?
Oh, yes. No, it was Paul's Auntie Millie. Her sister-in-law used to say, "Oh, I'm not getting undressed in front of the television at night because they can see you."
We all thought she was nuts.
We all thought she was nuts, but was she?
In 1959, she was nuts, but now...
Now they do. Now there's certain things that, depending, and you sign it away when you buy certain devices.
Yeah.
I still have that great little thing. I'll use it now. I'll switch the screen off and on again. And there I go. And here I am. Do you remember you gave me that little screen?
Exactly.
Item? Yes. So every single time I open my computer, of course, I think of you because
but now there's infrared. So the infrared is with the AI, it can see a heat map. So the whole screen becomes a camera. And it's not really that sophisticated yet, but you can still see. And so they recognize your eye movement and, different emotions get tracked and, a lot for marketing purposes. So there's a lot going on, Elizabeth. Yes, it's an eye-opening experience that we need to all be aware of because people used to say this thing, not in my day or not in my, lifetime. Mm-hmm. But it's exponentially, everyone should look up Morse principles in theory because it exponentially will grow faster as technology becomes available. It just has to and it continues to happen.
Sapphire's asking, is her phone digital wallet safer? So I guess not quite sure what the question means, but they have these little phone carry cases and stuff, and I know that some of those have like RFID protection. So you have to have RFID if you're going to get around anything, right?
Yes. So they have those ones that go on the back of the phone, and I think that's what she might be talking about. And if they say that they have that RFID protection, then that will work. It's right. Just if you're going to be carrying, a lot of people don't even carry that around, and I know eventually we'll be talking a little bit about China. But there's some lessons learned there.
That's absolutely amazing. So, back to, all of this stems from the data that we create, right? The heat map, the snail trail. Mm-hmm. And I know, when you were first starting out.
When I first went into working for a living when I was 14, we learned to type on a manual typewriter. We did ASDF, semicolon, LKJ. But when I learned, you had to put a sort of pinafore thing around your neck, which covered your hands and went down the back of the keyboard till you learned where all the keys were. You couldn't see that it was called touch typing.
Yeah.
Of course, then they became electric
typewriters, IBM Selectrics.
And then I got something, when I worked at Penthouse years ago, I got something called a K-Pro word processor.
It had floppy disks,
It
remember?
was massive, yeah. It took like 2 people to lift it on and off the desk.
Did you have cute outfits too?
Cute stenographer outfits, yeah.
Yeah.
French maids.
Not allowed to talk about that now, now that I'm 93.
But when you think, she started out learning touch typing with her eyes closed to then going to, a K Pro, which was a big bulky machine that had floppy disks that had 1028K on them. Right. And then
now, now before I go to sleep at night, I pick up my cell phone and say, Siri, call me at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm talking to my phone. Oh,
yeah, exactly. So
sorry.
No, I think you're headed in the right direction of questioning, because it's this whole thing about the natural language processing was very, very. I know you were going to ask me if I'm worried, but it's fascinating to me. And so back in 2009, I started doing Alexa skill hackathons because I wanted to learn natural language processing. I'm like, how is it that we can talk to devices and we can get some sort of response back or an action, and it had just started coming out. And so I started writing apps and learning about this. And one of them was for senior citizens called What's My Day? And that one, you just say, hey, what's my day? Oh, you have lunch with your grandson at, the golf place, your hair appointment is, and a car will be on its way, like everything is automated like this. Right. And, and it's really good for people who actually, have bad memory, or, you don't have to be a senior citizen. Right. Sometimes I feel like
busy. Right. They're just absolutely busy.
I think that's why an awful lot of people, even younger people, think their memory is failing them. But I think of it in terms of it's a hard drive, it's full, delete some stuff, get rid of it, and make room for the next lot.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm oversimplifying, but.
Oh, yours is not full.
Oh, mine is well filled, overfilled, overflowing.
Full of love and beautiful sunshine. Anyway, brilliance. So it's quite interesting how there is always a yin and a yang, and I find that the yang, to my thinking, is more of the not so good, bad acting behavior, and the yin, is more of the high and the light, so the white and the black. And,
right.
Yes. And so I feel like the yang is starting to become heavy, and we're not having that balance, because things are becoming more easy.
So is there a place our viewers can go and sign a petition or blog about, or should they be is there a club or a Facebook group or something that you would recommend they join that's all about ethical technology and ethical intelligence, where people A, can be informed, and B, have a voice?
Exactly. There are a few governmental platforms, and I know we don't talk politics, but this is actually more about guidance and making right decisions. And so there are a few. I'll give them to you, and then maybe we can post them after.
Yes. No, absolutely. Because I think people are like Mark Lindsay, our friend from Houston. He just commented he's so sick and tired of trying to second guess and play Where's Waldo with all of this stuff. If something happens, he'll just deal with it. But wouldn't it be nice if we could really, shine a light on the amazing things it can do? One of our colleagues, and Antonis Karidis from Athens in Greece, he's now in London. He has a company called Mati Vision. In Greek, Mati means eye. And obviously he was the very first 360 camera guy that we dealt with. And we brought him in to do the finale of American Idol when Lady Gaga was still, coming up. And we did a whole series of So You Think You Could Dance. And we had these cameras that were literally as big as this, with lenses all around them. And they fed into a software that he wrote. And the controller on the other end could literally just look around the room. We did Slash's Apocalyptic Love album with that. And he has since sort of got out of rock and roll because, a lot of that 360 stuff has gone to OnlyFans and the porn industry and a lot of that stuff. And he just threw his hands up. But now he's into medical devices, and he's using the nanotechnology little macro lenses with this 360. And last year he had a surgeon in London at Guy's Royal College Hospital of London direct a heart surgery happening live in Tokyo with this technology. So, if we could do more of that, rather than stealing people's money, I just think we all need to stand up and yell very loud that, okay, I get it. It's international. There is no legal jurisdiction for these hackers, and they're hard to find. And some of them, God help them, in phone rooms, if they don't make their money, their handlers or captors make an example of them and take them outside and beat the snot out of them, or worse.
The consequences have to match the crime. And,
right.
There's a lot of things going on with that. There's probably 3 or 4 things that I can bring up, but one in particular is this helpful production, and I know we're kind of going off script right now, but this helpful production of technologies that make people's lives better. There's this robot in Tokyo that actually they're severely handicapped people who can't use their arms, legs, were born that way, very, very small, but intelligent, and they're controlling these robots with their eye movement, and they're able to serve at coffee shops and talk to people and get out of the house, basically, so there's some really great things that way. And I actually wish to see more of that. There's we were talking a little bit about, there's some technologies like the deep fake where, they can mimic, all different faces, art, whatever, and I think there's a fine line between where it's blurred, where, that Jurassic Park question, the comment,
Yeah.
comes in where, we've spent so much time wondering if we could, we never asked if we should, and so some of these things, right, are a little even concerning to me, and it's really hard to keep ahead of it. So, there are challenges. I'm a signator of the 23 Asilomar principles of AI, and anyone can actually at this point sign into there and become a signator, which is quite fascinating. And I think it's a really productive way, because if you join into that, you actually are making a statement. So you can check that out, and that's really amazing. But
and where would we find that? What would we Google?
It's online. Just 23 Asilomar principles of AI.
Asilomar? How do we spell that?
Asilomar, Asilomar.
Okay. Asilomar. Have not heard of that. I will check that out. When I was very young, my Angie's first husband, Eddie, my Aunt Dora, his sister, was in a terrible motorcycle sidecar accident. She became paraplegic. And in the 60s, we used to go visit her, and she was a guinea pig for something called the possum system, where she she could whisper, but, basically, and she could swallow, but the rest of her was, dead from the neck down physically. And she was one of the first pioneers. And maybe that's why I developed an interest in technology. We used to go visit her. And by blowing into a straw in a tube that was connected to a screen and a keyboard, she could blow X amount of times and move the QWERTY keyboard on the screen across and type and ask for things when her lungs would give out. So I think technology to help other abled people has been around a long time. And that's what I'm excited about technology, is to, like you're saying, in Tokyo, to get these people who would otherwise be just stuck in a house into being a useful part of society.
And, not to be a downer, but there's ALS and Parkinson's.
Yes.
I don't even mind mentioning my father. I just buried my parents last Monday, and my father passed away of Parkinson's and late stage dementia. And so for 15 years, I studied neuroscience and helped with an actual patent on a device that is chromatic with color and light that helps with this. But, it was a mad rush, and desperation. Thank you to try to help my father and other people like that, but, there's things that we learn, and there are some very amazing things, like there's this microchip now that the company Synchron has come out with, that it goes through the jugular vein and it goes into the central cortex of the brain. And right, ALS and other people who can't speak can actually use natural language processing through a computer and say hello to their children, or write an email, or send a text, and to me, that's beautiful. It's almost like what you see those children when they weren't able to hear, but then they get some colloquial device. And you see their face, they're shocked, they're happy, they cry sometimes. It's that same similar kind of thing that it's beautiful. But then we also have to understand, that there's different types of mechanisms that are also being developed that make me question the ethics and the responsibility. And if we're building these things, then we definitely should have some guidelines and some rule book behind it, right? There should be a playbook. It shouldn't just be build it and anyone can use it for whatever.
Yeah, well, she calls me the bionic
the
woman,
anginator,
because I've got 2 titanium knees. I've got microchips behind both
silicone
eyes.
hip.
I've got a plastic hip, yes. What else? Oh, I've just recently, my hearing has been a little dodgy, and I've acquired some, what are they called? Jabra.
Yeah. They used to be
devices.
called,
They magnify
Lively.
sound. Yeah.
Right. But it's all controlled on her phone with a Bluetooth app. She can do settings and sound up and down. And
Isn't it weird?
It's just amazing. But yeah, when we went, a funny story, I took her to the Jules Stein Eye Institute in Westwood at UCLA there to get, obviously they're going to do these chips one eye at a time. And so I go and I drop her off and I think, well, I had some banking to do and I'm going to go grab some lunch because, this is going to take all day. By the time I pulled out the parking lot, drove down to Wilshire, went to Wells Fargo, found a parking space, I get a text message from the doctor.
Ready.
She's ready. Like 20 minutes. I'm like, what the hell? Wow. So went and picked her up and she had the big patch over the eye. And I said, oh my God, let's get you home. And she's like, no, the hell with that. There used to be this great little Japanese place here. And when I worked in Westwood, let's go have a sake. So what did we do at 11:30 in the morning?
Have a sake.
Went and had a hot sake.
Yeah.
She had 3. I had 1. I was driving, came home. And I'd asked Martin to kindly put black plastic trash, black her bedroom out because of this eye surgery. So she goes in there for a nap, 3 sakes down, and Martin and I were working upstairs on the edit bay. And I hear this blood-curdling scream, and I'm like, oh my God, no, what the hell's her eye popped out?
Her eye's fallen out.
But no, what had happened? You got in the bathroom and looked at your chin?
I did. And I said, who the hell is this hairy-chinned old bitch? And it was me. I could see, like I hadn't seen it.
Wow. So they're powered by saline, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no need to battery, etc.
Oh no.
Okay. So here's a couple of things that I was thinking about when it comes to implementation within the human body. I actually worked on the St. Jude medical pacemaker devices, the leads that I designed, whether we knew if they were working or not. And this was the first firmware software that was put into a human being. And so these pacemakers obviously have been around for a long time, but this was back in 2009. We were in a hurry to make sure that we could, know if they were failing or not. And that was a challenge back then. So I used a software that was used for finance, and it had a good workflow, right? It had a good workflow at the time. Sure. And so we pinged the pacemaker, and the pacemaker would ping back, phone home. Right. If we didn't get a ping back, it would call the first in line, the ENT, and they would show up, at the Japanese place with your sake before you even knew that it wasn't working anymore. Yeah, so that was super cool. But I left that company thinking that's a really great, technology for the time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't kept up. So the company Abbott came in and proved that they could shut the batteries down. This was in 2018, and like for 480 some odd thousand pacemakers in minutes. So they sued the company and they won the whole division, right? Because they didn't keep up. You can't really drive fast or safely the T-board forward on the Autobahn, right? You have to keep up with technology. So anyway, these implementations, like in your eyes, are amazing. And I believe that it was probably, I'm just guessing because of my expertise in technology, that they were testing to see what else they can do, how much computerized technology that can go in an eye and how sustainable it is. So, I'm glad that it's benefited you, but there's these other things. There's these shows, sci-fi shows that show some of these technologies. When I can say I was working at Sony, they invented we invented the camera for, it was a contact lens. So that was something that went on the outside of the eye. But now this whole thing, Angie, you're just fascinating and brave. That's all I have to say.
Well, that's why we did one eye. She had to sign all kinds of disclaimers, and if she lost the sight in one eye, she wouldn't say. It was definitely an experimental program. What was it, 12 years ago now?
Probably
13
about that,
years.
yeah. And it cost me $50. That's
on
all.
Medicare.
Yeah.
Medicare paid for it. But that was my first question. What happens when the battery runs out? Does she have to do it again? And they said, no, it's powered by the salt water, the saline. In your eye.
We're all electrical human beings,
Oh,
so
that's
right.
I've had some really weird, like buzzy, just muscly things. And I thought, oh boy, is it my heart? And I called my cardiologist, and he's like, oh, sounds like your magnesium's low. So I got my magnesium up, and boom, it stopped. But we're all a chemical experiment. Every one of us
powered by saline, just like your eyes and your chips. Right. We are powered by saline. And so, I know you. Yeah, go ahead.
Mark is saying, you're right. It brings up many legal issues about software and firmware. If you get a pacemaker and it stops working, then, the ambulance chaser lawyer is going to come along? Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's happened. So, it's kind of once again, a fuzzy, blurry line, when we start, adding technology in human beings. And there's some really, like the pacemaker saved lives, it was a good thing. It's not, destructive, but we are embarking with these new technologies on getting a little bit too aggressive, and 3D printing, 3D printing organs, so going from, a dot matrix printer. And this was the first technology, and taking the ink cartridge and putting in, the blood and plasma in your DNA, hooking it up to a 3D printer, and then you can print skin. And that's the largest organ in your body, right?
Yes. Yeah, we have a very good friend. He's a genius, actually. His name is David Hartkopf. He built his own 3D printer quite a few years ago, which was pretty revolutionary then.
He called me in Palm Springs. He was out in Palm Springs, and he said, okay, I built a 3D printer because they weren't commercially available. What should I print? What business am I going into? And I said, antique drawer pulls and teeth. He's like, what?
Teeth.
I'm like, yeah, teeth. So now he has a whole business that 3D prints teeth.
Teeth
or you go to Restoration Hardware, you buy a lovely piece of furniture and it's missing, one of the drawers is missing one of the pulls, and you got to either change all the handles, but you really like the originals, so he'll print you one that matches your old antique furniture. Right. I was joking, but now he's apparently doing it.
Yeah.
Printing teeth.
I must get onto him and get some new teeth, actually.
Who'd think it though?
I know.
So you're saying, I wonder if that's what Jay Leno had, because he had skin grafts. I wonder if they printed.
Maybe because, we tested on wounded soldiers a few years back, and instead of 6 to 9 weeks to heal, it was taking 3 days.
Yes.
So this advancement's been going on for quite some time, and
amazing.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to, not to scare anyone, but to say that we are moving fast. And when I was at USC Annenberg performing with the lens disruption for VR, AR, augmented reality, the biology department made an announcement that they got a multi-million dollar, $100 million grant to build a human. And that was back in 2018, and they've already completed the task. So yeah, so there's
hope it doesn't run for office.
should we? And there's a lot, you could probably do some research and find out more about that. I'm not on that project, but there's things that are occurring with technologies. Are we going to be talking heads and jars?
And the jaws like Futurama, and then Mark is like, CRISPR is pretty terrifying too.
Exactly. CRISPR is one of the top technologies that MIT mentioned. So I was in the MIT, since I attended there, they have an annual top technologies. In 2023, CRISPR was one of them. And they're branching out to use it for a number of different things now. And for those of you who don't know what it's about, you could probably do some research, but, it's helping correct chromosome disorders, like cerebral palsy, or, so they can go into your DNA and fix something. But now they're moving that technology, if you can think about it, I'm not going to mention too much, but into a number of other types of technologies.
Wow. Holy moly.
What was you were telling me yesterday about the Japanese system of points?
No, China.
China. I beg your
China.
pardon.
China. That's not CRISPR. That's whatever. But that's, many moons ago, I started a business with our friend and partner Paul Ritz out of Dallas, and it was called connectcode.mobi. What year would that be, Martin? Do you remember?
Oh, God.
2000
years ago.
Yeah, 2000. I don't know. 14, 15. And it was basically scan this QR code outside the house for sale and get a virtual tour of the house on your phones, because A, paper flyers go out of date. B, there's espionage amongst realtors. They go from box to box in the middle of the night stealing each other's flyers. And so I thought, well, you just go in with an iPhone, do a 360 video of the house, you create a little movie, you put it on a dedicated web page, and then all the house needs outside on the hanger, the for sale sign, is the QR code, and people can walk past with their dog or sit in their car if it's Pennsylvania and it's freezing. And so it did okay. And we did a big deal with Remax out of Denver, but people didn't understand what QR codes are. Well, fast forward to the pandemic, and now to order food, you had to get one, right? Because you used to have to have an app, and now they're camera enabled. But I just think everything from NFTs to QR to AI to augmented reality, it's all crazy. But now in China with the QR codes, you get one assigned personally, don't you? And to get in and out of buildings and on and off trains, you have to scan it, and that's connected to something you were telling me about social.
No, it's not even just QR codes. So that was yesterday. Today it's even changed. So there is one thing that I wanted to just kind of plug real quick is on our first podcast that we're actually launching on March 30th. Scotty, who is a cybersecurity expert, will be talking about the dangers of QR codes. So I'm not going to dive into that right now, but that's his first subject. In China, actually, everything has moved from QR codes to facial recognition. So you don't have to have your phone, you don't have to have your wallet, you don't have to have anything. You just walk up to a vending machine and it sees your face and it'll give you what you need. And, you walk or want. No one needs a candy bar. Well, maybe sometimes I do. But go to a train station and, walk in, go to grocery stores, pick what you want, walk out, you have what you need, you get charged, right? Go to a restaurant. This is when it gets a little tricky, because there's some restaurants, if you don't have enough money, they won't even let you in. There's other restaurants, they'll let you in. So they check your face and then they say, okay, well, maybe not you. Or, sometimes it's retinal, but it's face or retinal, it's bio. Everything is bio now in China. And so, because you can't change it, right? You can't just go and get a new password of your face. So then you go in, and if you don't have much money, they'll give you a different menu. You don't get the same menu. So you can't even splurge on something.
What happens if you commit a crime and then go to jail and then get out of jail? Is your face just canceled?
Right. I've been telling everyone that, and that there is a technology that's going to start coming out. It'll be a facial recognition force field, right? So just be aware that's going to happen. But anyway, so the kicker of this whole thing, that's socioeconomic deal that's happening in China, is once you have bad credit, once you have, not enough money, you're not allowed in places, and neither are your friends or family. So any association you have at that time, then they also, and you could even have money, you can even have, but you have to pick your friends and you have to pick the people you're around. It's mind blowing to me that that's what it's come to.
What would happen when somebody has plastic surgery then and has a new face?
Well, there's some famous people, I'm not going to name any, but maybe they're onto something.
Okay.
Well, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And maybe they were at the Grammys. Yeah, indeed.
Okay, moving right on.
Our director friend, Devin Palmer, is asking, neither of us as lawyers, we don't give legal advice and we don't play one on TV, but when AI writes an article or creates an image, who owns that? Because you've got derivative copyright and transformative copyright, and where did it learn from? And if it pulls from Wikipedia, is that public or is that copywritten? The law firms must be going crazy trying to figure this out.
Yeah, and once again, there's loopholes. That particular use case is similar to the EOM emission cars versus the autonomous electric vehicles.
Right.
It's that same conundrum. Do we throw the rule book away, right? Does it apply because it was whatever, and it wasn't quote unquote human written? There's so many layers there, and I don't think there's a good answer. I think it's by case right now. I think
right.
And you know how it goes. It goes down this weird snowball of, if one person gets it, then they can refer back to that, and then it becomes this, and then it's a winding road. And right. Angie's very familiar with winding roads.
Yeah, long and winding roads.
Yeah.
And Mark in Houston is asking, do you agree that what most people call AI is basically machine learning? Right.
Most people, yes. I think they're proud of themselves for being able to say that term. My dad, when I graduated, in artificial intelligence, I told him, and I was kind of excited because it wasn't something that not very many people were doing at the time, and it was clearly learning from basic machine learning all the way up to stage 5. Generative AI, where the machines think for themselves. So there's different levels, and you can do a little research on that, because there is an explanation between machine learning and AI, and most people just they even sales folks in their computer systems, they may have some learning, yes, but we are at the point now where AI is actually a thing. So when I told my dad, he says, "What's that? Sometimes I feel artificially intelligent."
Yes, right.
Yeah,
That's
I know what you mean.
That's funny. Yeah. So Sapphire is asking, she's used AI generated art. Is that safe? I'm not sure whether she means, is it legally safe copyright wise? Or, every machine knows your IMEI number of your phone, right? And what you've created. And
nothing's safe, Sapphire.
Oh. Huh?
Nothing's safe. And you can even find what's really interesting on, I just saw a small little blip from Elon Musk saying your bank isn't safe. Your money's not safe. So if you search for your money's not safe and Elon Musk, you'll hear an interesting insight to that.
Yeah.
So in all honesty, you should have multi-factor. You should do exactly what organizations, and I've worked with multiple different large enterprises on what protocol needs to be used in order for different plug-in types of companies to work with the industry, and those same NIST and if you go to the National Information Cybersecurity site, you will see rules. Those rules should apply to each person. So to make it safe is to have that multi-factor, to have, to change your whatever your password key, whatever they want to call it, certificate, depending on the type of technology you're using. There's a whole list of things there, and everybody should be looking at those as if you were your own company.
Yep. No, that's really, really good advice. And these are the kind of topics that you're going to get into on your new podcast. Let's talk a little bit about that before we close. And where did you come up with the whole Joe thing?
So it's fantastic. Okay, so a little background. Sean is a longtime radio voice, been on a lot of radios. He's the voice of True Crimes on iHeartRadio. And Scotty has a long-term background in both cybersecurity and music, and very, very talented individuals. And, we started talking about how there's things that people just don't know, just like what I was just mentioning, that actually, there's a page, there's a Facebook page, but we're getting ready to launch. It's premiering March 30th, but there's so much in there of what the average Joe doesn't know. And it could be, and then we have a section called What Joe Would Like to Know, which is some really cool stuff that's coming out that people would love to be using right now. So, there is that positiveness. We do have all the warnings and all of the things that, being with our finger on the pulse in the industry, and the expertise globally, 40 countries, 30 industries. This podcast will highlight what all of us should know, and also some cool, interesting stuff that you would probably be privy to before most.
Excellent. Good. So when people are asking for the link, and obviously when the podcast launches, March 30th, correct? Mm-hmm. I will be doing posting and doing and sharing whatever. So if you follow me, then I will point you in the right direction as soon as I'm allowed to raise the red velvet curtain, because I think you've got a whole bunch of very interested and grateful listeners here. I'm going to throw the last question to my husband. What happens when one AI meets another AI? I mean, if they get into like legal opinion fight, I just read in Costa Rica, there's a judge who literally couldn't decide a case, and he went to ChatGPT and fed everything in and asked for a verdict.
Well, and even with that, and I'll jump back to that in just a second, but even with that, there are AIs having babies, basically creating their own AI. And there's a couple of countries where AI got human rights. So there's some really, really fuzzy, weird stuff going on. So understand when AI meets AI, but we're even more in larger conundrums, even than that. Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's the Wild West. There's no. And that's a very good question, Martin. I don't have a good answer.
Okay, well, never mind, eh? So in true McCartney tradition, we wrote you your own limerick,
okay,
my dear. So you are now part of the McCartney Limerick Club, and after 3 we shall go. And a 1, 2, 3. There once was a blondie in tech who always knew what was up next. Called Sunshine by name, she gained digital fame by explaining to Joes the complex.
Thank you.
There you have it.
We need to use that someday for our podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
be honored. Be fun. Get Martin to put it to some Irish jig music. And I don't know, Scotty wouldn't like that because he's Scottish.
Well, no, Scotty probably would like it.
That's great. Well, thank you, Sunshine. You are a star. I know how crazy busy you are for your current project. So thanks for taking. I can't believe we've been talking an hour. It's one of our longest shows, but it's been fascinating.
Yeah.
And can't wait
Maybe
to have you
come
next
back sometime.
Okay.
I would absolutely. Anytime you are welcome. You are more than welcome. So thank you, kids. And thanks for tuning in. And this will be shared to YouTube very shortly. And we'll see you all next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
So, bye-bye.